Hello, I'm Bonnie Barnes. I'm a member of the Los Angeles YMCA's Board of Directors. I'm truly excited and honored to be here today representing them as we really talk about girls' equity in sports. This is our fourth conversation like this. During the first three, we met a lot of athletes, coaches, scout broadcasters, even a team attorney. And today we're going to get to talk to some fantastic business people that are really making sports successful. These women are truly amazing. I know my experiences at the Y, whether it was swimming lessons or clubs or leadership, really helped me in my business career. And now we get to hear about some others that are truly impressive. I'm going to turn this over now to Christina Pink. She is a fantastic Clippers broadcaster. And really, Christina, take it away. You tell us about you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Bonnie. And actually, thank you for being part of an important charity-based organization here in Los Angeles. I work for Fox Sports and Bally Sports as a reporter and host for the Clippers broadcast as well as the NFL. So I love sports, and I am excited to talk to these incredible women about the business of sports, because these women are absolutely changing the game and raising the bar. So without further ado, I want to introduce them because they are the star of this panel, these stars of this panel. First, I'd like to introduce Kim Davis. Hi, Kim. Kim is the Executive Vice President of Social Impact, Growth Initiatives, and Legislative Affairs at the National Hockey League, where she is setting the league on a new course to attract, retain, and develop fans with a specific focus on multicultural audiences. Wonderful, Kim. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Danita Johnson recently joined Major League Soccer club DC United as their president of business operations, making her the very first Black president of an MLS club and the third woman in the league history to serve in this role. Amazing. Hi, Danita.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Julie Ehrman is the president and founder of Angel City Football Club, the women's professional soccer team coming to Los Angeles in 2022. We can't wait. Julie has more than 20 years of experience building and bringing new products to life.
Hi, Julie. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Gillian Zucker is in her 7th season as president of business operations of the LA Clippers and has more than 25 years of experience in the sports industry. She leads all Clippers business functions, as well as the Forum, the Agua Caliente Clippers, and development of the Inglewood Basketball and Entertainment Center. Hi, Gillian. Oh, Gillian, you're on mute.
Okay, well, I'm the first one to do that.
Get it out of the way early. That's okay. That's okay. Now we have.
Hi, great to be here.
Good to see you. Okay, so we have one more special guest. I'd like to introduce Pepper Persley, who's going to help me co-host this panel of incredible women. Pepper is a 10-year-old journalist. You heard that right, just 10 years old, from New York City, who focuses mainly on women's basketball. She has her own talk show, Dish with Pepper, hosts a bi-weekly women's basketball podcast, She Got Next with Pepper Persley, and has interviewed a wide range of inspiring women. So Pepper, to start things off, we're gonna turn it around and get your perspective. So I would love to know, how did you break into this field at 10 years old, become a respected voice in women's sports, and why specifically did you choose to spotlight the WNBA and women's sports?
I think it was a really obvious decision for me, just as a girl who loves sports and who specifically loves basketball, in terms of like getting into women's basketball, and also just growing up, watching the WNBA, watching women's basketball. And I knew that there weren't many fans there because I'd watch NBA and WNBA games and just see it with my own eyes, the difference in fans. And so I think it was really important for me to do what little work I could do to get more eyes on women's basketball.
So you've interviewed some pretty big names already, everyone from Diana Taurasi, Brianna Stewart. You've interviewed actresses like Zoe Saldana. And doing all these interviews, what have you learned that you can share with our audiences about what's made them so successful?
I think that there's two words that almost everybody, maybe even everybody I've asked, I've interviewed, has talked about: just work hard. Because as women, it was especially hard for them because they have to work twice as hard and be twice as good. And so I think just hearing that from them over and over again has also fueled that in me, and I hope it can fuel it in our audience as well.
Okay, so when we hear women's sports, automatically we think about the athletes, right? Because we see incredible women like Serena Williams and Candace Parker every day on TV. But you are showing a lot of people that there are other avenues as well. So how can we inspire young girls to see that they can pursue other paths in sports?
Yeah, I think that's really important as well, because, like, as you said, the athletes often get a lot of the coverage for sports in general. But you can be a coach, you can be a ref, you can be in the front office, you can work in sports business, like a lot of the amazing women on this panel do. So I think that I would just say that a lot of people think that, I guess, being an athlete is the coolest option, but it's not necessarily about how cool it is. And as someone who's covering women's sports, I try to also cover not the athletes, or the athletes that don't often get as much coverage, to also bring to light the work that they're doing. Because yes, athletes are amazing and they're incredible at what they do. There are also so many other things you could do in sports that could bring you joy.
Well, I gotta say, I already think that you're pretty cool, and I feel like we have our own version of dishing it with Pepper Persley here. So I am gonna let you kick things off, because I would love to hear from our executives now. So why don't you ask the first question?
All right. Thank you so much, Christina. That was awesome. So one of the things that is close to my heart as a girl who plays sports, who is so inspired by all the business women in sports, including all the amazing women on this panel, girls who play sports become women who lead, seems to fit perfectly with our topic today, doesn't it? So I was just wondering, what does that saying mean to all of you as business women in sports? Kim, do you want to start?
Sure. Thank you so much, Pepper. And I'm sure, like my colleagues, we're in awe of you. If you have this much power and authority at 10, I'm afraid to see what it looks like in 10 years. The future is bright for sure. To your specific question, I think what is clear is the data, and the data shows that something like 95% of women who are in C-suite roles have either played sport at a high school or a college level. So we know that sport is an amazing platform for leadership. And like you said, whether you are actually playing the sport, or you're in the front office, or you're an owner of a sports team, there's a powerful correlation between the world of sports, particularly for women, and future careers and leadership in sports. So I think that's a powerful notion that we need to share with girls as early as possible.
Definitely. Thank you.
Well, I figured out my mute button, so I'll go next. This past couple of years, we've taken on an initiative at the Clippers to refurbish, along with the city of LA, all the basketball courts in Los Angeles region, both indoor and outdoor. And we've done a lot in conjunction with the YMCA as well. And the purpose behind all of that was this idea that, when you're growing up, if you have an opportunity to play sports, whether it's on a club level or a competitive level, or if it's just for recreation, that just that kind of movement and energy, it creates endorphins that change your mood. It gives you energy. It helps with your health. So all those things are super important for young people to develop. But in addition to that, the camaraderie that you experience in sports, the collaboration, the teamwork, and then really understanding about hard work and what your part in a bigger function is, that those are all experiences that you get in sports, and they're so important. It's why we're so proud to partner with the YMCA. And I think that everything that the Y does for children is amazing. amazing. But it's also a big part of the reason why I was drawn to sports as a career, is just to be a part of that energy all the time.
Pepper, I just add to that, to what Kim and Gillian said as well. I think one of the other fun parts for me is like when you play sports, you got to make quick decisions sometimes, right? Like you go in, you study, you're studying with your coaches, you're going through game plan, and you're figuring out how you're going to actually play in the game. And so a lot of times when you become an executive, it's like you study your craft, you learn all these things, and then it's like it's game time and you have to make decisions. And I think that's one of the key things when you move into these other roles from a leadership perspective, is being able to be decisive and make those decisions. And I think those skills come from playing sports. I think they really do. In that instant where you're like, I'm going to take that final shot and, I'm going to go for it. Like those are the type of moments that really help you excel within your career. And I think really connect back to skill sets that maybe you didn't even realize were going to help you as you get older and in your careers.
I love the way you connected sports to business. Thank you. And Julie, last but not least.
Oh, I mean, I think they said it all. I mean, I grew up playing basketball. So at 9 years old, I was playing at the YMCA. My twin sister and myself were 2 of 60 boys that were playing. And, I always think back to that grit, never say die, give it your 100%, give it your all, as, really, really fundamental to who I am and how I've gotten to be where I am. And with Angel City Football Club, we're building it very differently than it's been built before. And I'm not sure I would have had the perspective or the fortitude or the excitement to build it this way if I didn't have to experience challenges on the court where, you want the ball in the last minute, right? And that there's an opportunity for you to win, and there's an opportunity to do it differently. So I played all the way through college, and I learned more on the court than I learned in any classroom.
Yeah, everyone wants that moment. You're down to balls in your hands, down it to the final seconds. And those are the times that you can shine. And we've seen that so often, with a lot of women in sports. So I want to ask you specifically, in your roles, some of the challenges that we've seen with equal pay, because women have been excelling at the same or even more so than some of their male counterparts, but not always earning the same compensation. So how can all of us support women and men, all sports, to do a much better job? Julie, I'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, not a hot button at all for the U.S. women's national team players. They're in the process of a pay equity fight right now. I think the challenge is pay is a result of the value of the organization, the value of the league, and how much revenue it generates, right? And so at the end of the day, you have to play a role in growing the revenue of the league. Sorry, that's my dog. You have to grow the value of the league so that you can ultimately trickle it down to the players. I mean, that's one approach, right? And so as we think about it from Angel City, it's about how do we get more eyeballs watching games? How do we get more people to the games? How do we sell more merch? How do we create more programs and memberships and subscriptions to basically grow the pie so that we have the ability to pay the players? Second to that is, we think, making the players part of the solution, right? They should be incentivized to promote the games, to promote selling merch, to promote their jerseys, right? If you make them a part of the puzzle and allow them to benefit from the revenue upside of the puzzle, they also have an opportunity to generate more revenue. And I think the third thing for us in the league that, again, is going into its 10th year in 22, but still fairly young, is this idea that, the players are the assets. We fundamentally believe that fandom has changed pretty drastically over the last couple of years, predominantly because of social media, where fans follow players first, teams second, and leagues third. So I'm a Candace Parker fan because she's an investor in Angel City. She played for the Sparks. We're a huge fan. Now she's moved to Chicago, and I have now becoming a Chicago fan because I'm a fan of Candace Parker. I don't lose my affinity for the Sparks, but I'm now inheriting a new team. And so when you think about it this way, and you think about your players really being your assets, how do you invest in them to develop content, to help them develop their platform, help them develop their social media presence so they can grow their audience that ultimately will trickle to you and the team? And so we spend a lot of time thinking about how do we develop the content profile of the players so that it can ultimately benefit our team and therefore the league. And ultimately, at the end of the day, will drive more revenue to them because the entire pie is growing.
I think your dog has very strong opinions on this as well.
He does.
But this question's for all of you ladies. Maybe Danita, can you weigh in on this as well?
I mean, I'm probably right there with Julie on this. Is probably one of the hotter topics you could ever ask me to talk about. But I think she really covered the gamut of it. I mean, she went through all three prongs of what are really the effective pieces to that. I think it's also to, as we talk about the exposure from a media standpoint, it's also about the brand investment, which Julie touched on some, but really that partnership aspect to increase reach and have brand affinity and alignment with players, teams, and leagues from a women's sports perspective is huge in growth. And I think it's huge in growth in men's athletics too. You know, even with the MLS, you know, we're not the biggest league in the country yet. You know, we have opportunity to grow and a lot of that to happen, but it's about exposure. It's about storytelling. It's about building brand affinity and crossing those lines all together. And I think it really does play into the opportunity for success for us as a league and for many other leagues. And I think, you know, sometimes people think it's so much, right? There's so many leagues, there's so many things happening, but I think there's a way to have your own lane in each of this, right? And in each facet, we all offer different abilities, even though we're playing a sport, but there's different things that make us unique in our own. And I think finding those lanes to develop our businesses is really key to how we grow, how we get more investment, how we pay athletes more, how we fund back to our teams and to our communities. It plays into it. It's a full kind of ecosystem things, but I think each of us have our lane and opportunity for success in it.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot to add to what Julie and Danita said. I mean, they really laid out the business case. And I love this notion of there's a way to have your own lane. I often think about that through the lens of the fact that at the NHL, for example, 40% of our fan base are women. And so, you know, if we're not invested in women's hockey in a legitimate and a sincere way, I think that fan base over time is going to erode. And I think so, you know, as much as it might be a work in progress, I think that you do have to find a way within the ecosystem to rationalize it as a value proposition, given the fact that women are a growing demographic in sport broadly. And that's something that I think every sport league has to keep its eye on.
You know, just having the conversation, in my opinion, is a major step forward. There's so many times I think where particularly women don't voice things that are difficult, and the fact that this has become just a common conversation and something that's in the media that people are discussing. You're also seeing tremendous amount of support from men. I know, you know, in the NBA, the support for the WNBA has just been phenomenal, and I think it's going to take collaboration from all parts in order to see some change here and growth in women's sports.
I have a Julie, quick follow-up for you, because you brought up something that is pretty interesting. It's the fact that kind of the nature of fandom has changed because people are more committed to players, not necessarily to teams. How has that kind of had a positive or negative effect, just that overall shift in the way people kind of follow them?
I mean, for us, it's that you can have fans anywhere in the world. And there's huge positivity in that when you think about growing the visibility and the awareness of the sport, but also driving the revenue of the sport. Like, we are thinking about how do we create membership packages for those people that don't live in Los Angeles, don't live in California, don't live in the United States. Like, what would that experience look like, and how can we engage them? And especially as you think about women's soccer, and more specifically the U.S. women's national team. And if you look at Alex Morgan, she has 9 million followers. I'm positive if you add up all of the followers across all of the NWSL teams, you're still at a factor of, you know, 2 to 3 times what they all have combined, maybe 4 to 5 times. And so if you can harness that and lean into that, you can really help to build exposure, right? We saw, you know, we're constantly sort of bombarded with the fact that less than 5% of all media coverage is on women's sports. And we're so lucky to have, you know, individuals like Pepper that are starting young to start telling stories and to get a younger demographic to start paying attention. I mean, that's what we need. And Just Women's Sports today announced a $3.5 million raise and had a number of, you know, professional male athletes. And we need that. We need the exposure. We need the ability to have different types of people invest in these teams and leagues to build exposure and brand. But I think the fact that you follow a player, again, I now have 2 WNBA teams that I'm a fan of now, and it used to be 1. So I do think that this can have huge dividends, pay huge dividends for these clubs, even when your favorite player moves.
Yeah. Pepper, I'll let you ask the next one.
All right, this one is for Gillian. So you've led the Clippers organization through a lot over the past 7 seasons, from the pandemic to a complete cultural overhaul. As you've shifted the organization's values and what it believes in from season to season, what did you prioritize? And have there been any key moments where you could feel things really changed?
Oh, I think there have been so many, Pepper. It's incredible. I mean, I can remember when I first joined the team and I met the staff, I was shocked at how small it was. There were so many areas that just, hadn't been resourced in the way that I think you would expect to see an NBA franchise resourced. And so, we hired a lot of people, and we hired a lot of young people, I think, who made a lot of changes in the organization, brought a new energy and life, and also a lot of technology to what we do. So, there was a time where a lot of the sales was hand-to-hand combat, going out and meeting people face to face. And now, there are computers which help figure out, who is most likely to be interested in basketball, so that you're talking to people who are friendly to whatever conversation you're having. So things like that, where we saw technology really make a difference in the way that we did business, were pretty big milestones. I think also our community outreach. I mean, the kind of work that we've been able to do in the community and the number of lives that we've been able to touch. These teams, I think that's one of the most miraculous things about them, is that they truly are, when you think about who owns these franchises, they're owned by the community. There's somebody who gets to hold them and trust for a while, but you hope that you leave them better than you found them. And I think certainly in the past 7 years, what we've been able to do with the leadership of Steve and Connie Baumer, really making it a priority to do more in the community, has been amazing.
Okay, now, so I'm going to throw a question Danita's way, because you are the first Black president of an MLS club. You're also the third woman to hold that role. And it's a big deal, but it also feels like it shouldn't be a big deal, because we want to celebrate it, but we don't want you to be the last, because we want to have many more of women like you in those roles. So how do we go about making sure that, we embrace the moment, but also make sure that this is just another step in progress?
Yeah, to me, and I just keep smiling at Pepper every time she speaks, that is why. It just makes me so happy. One, for your pure passion for the W, because I love the W. Everybody knows that about me. But two, your poise, your demeanor, your ability to say, I seek something and I want to make a change and be a part of that. For me in this seat and having this opportunity, it is also that. It's now, what do I do with it? How do I guide? So doing events such as this and being able to share my story and being able to create opportunities for other people is part of this next phase of the journey. So I don't mind leading. And you can't shy away from that, right? So I don't mind leading. So I've kind of gotten to the point I've had to talk about this more and more, where I no longer fear saying, okay, yes, I am the first, and I take that responsibility. But at least I trust in myself and who I am to lead in a positive light, to create opportunities for other people. And so that does excite me about it. And so I look at Pepper, and for many of the young girls that are probably on this call as well, you all have the opportunity to lead, and know that there are people and women around, and men as well, that will be advocates for you and help you within this space to grow and learn. So I said, let's push it forward. I know I won't be the last. Absolutely won't.
No, it's great, because people see you, they get inspired. And then we hear from women like Pepper, who are just absolutely changing the game. So Pepper, what's your next question?
All right. Firstly, thank you so much for that, Danita. And then I've got a question for Julie. So you said the time has come to reshape expectations on and off the soccer field. This is the place. The time is now. Welcome to the beginning. So what is Angel City FC going to do to make that happen? And how can that be applied to other professional sports?
No, I appreciate that question. Angel City is really unique. It was born out of the Time's Up movement. And one of our founders, Natalie Portman, the actress and activist, joined Time's Up to address pay equity for women. And as a part of her learning process, got the opportunity to meet with a number of the U.S. women's national team players. And early on, heard a talk by Abby Wambach, who talked about how retirement for her was so different than men. She received the Icon Award with Kobe and Peyton Manning, and they were literally talking about how they were going to spend their hundreds of millions of dollars. And Abby was talking about how she's going to pay her mortgage. and Abby, probably the most successful, the most accomplished soccer player, was in a very different situation. And that really struck a chord with Natalie, where she wanted to learn why this was the case. Why are women paid so much less than men? And, fast forward about a year and a half, she stopped asking the question why, and she started asking what she could do. And the first thing she did was bring a bunch of her friends to a U.S. women's national team game that drew a ton of attention, because her friends are Eva Longoria and Jennifer Gardner and Jessica Chastain and Uzo Aduba, all of these incredible actresses. And she saw the attention it really garnered. And then she wanted to make even a bigger impact. And the way to do that, and Pepper, you are, a visual representation of this. You got to get a seat at the table, right? You got to get your own mic and your own camera and be able to tell the world what's important and bring on guests who share your vision. And so Natalie said we should bring a women's professional team to Los Angeles and be a part of changing the future. And because Angel City really came out of Time's Up and this conversation about pay equity and player equity, we wanted to build Angel City with that in mind. So we wanted to build an organization where mission and capital could coexist, where we could lead with passion and purpose to drive to profitability. So every single thing we do has some element of having a positive impact in our community. We want to set higher expectations on and off the pitch, and it's not an afterthought for us. Purpose isn't an afterthought for us. We do it every time we show up. So when we announced Angel City Football Club, we announced our partnership with the LA84 Foundation and their Play Equity Fund in a multi-year partnership where they use sports to address social injustice in our communities. When we started talking to sponsors to drive sponsorship revenue for us, we announced the Angel City Football Club sponsorship model, where we give 10% of our sponsorship revenue back into the community through one of our 3 pillars, what a lot of people on this call talked about, which are equality, essentials, and education. So providing young girls access to transportation and food, and then the ability to get to a pitch and play in a safe environment. Or it could be education or health and wellness and nutrition understanding, or it could be funds for, underrepresented communities and Black and brown entrepreneurs in the community. So we just do it differently. We lead with purpose. We drive to profitability. Being profitable is really important to us, because if you're going to do something different and have the exact same outcome as 90% of sports clubs, which is they don't make money, then why are you doing something different? But we're, in a very unique situation where we don't have to build a stadium. We don't have, a budget for players that is beyond that of what we can generate. And so we're in a position where we can make solid and sound business decisions, but also lead with purpose at the same time, and know that the impact that we make in the community and the belongingness and the camaraderie that we establish will pay it forward for the club.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Julia. I was just going to say, handing it over to Christina.
Oh, no. Take all the time you want, Pepper. No, I was just going to say it's all about paying it forward. So I love hearing about the initiatives and all the things that you're doing with the community. So of course, obviously we want progress, right? But it seems many times, as we've heard people say, well, if women could do it by themselves, it probably would have been done years ago. But is that statement true? Because it seems like you need male allies to kind of help with representation and to also make sure that there's equal compensation. So how has that kind of rung true? I guess we'll start with Kim on this one.
Yeah, I mean, clearly we need male allies, because the truth is that men are still in the predominant positions of power. And so, as those power dynamics change, we need to understand that we need to build allyship, I believe, with men. And there are different kinds of allies, right? There are progressive allies who take the lead in pushing allyship. There are reactive allies who stand back and wait to be told what to do. And I think what we want to build, particularly in sport, are progressive allies. And all of us commented on the fact that as our women are taking a stronger position in sports, I think the greatest allies have been their male counterparts. And that is going to have a major influence on the ownership and the leadership of all sports organizations. So I think we have to do it side by side with men. That doesn't mean that women don't and can't lead it. But for sure, I believe we need allies.
We'll go to Danita. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm in complete agreement with Kim. Complete agreement. We have to work together. We can't do this alone. Just like we as women have to work together, we have to work with our male counterparts. It's a combination of efforts that continue to drive us forward. And I think when we start to silo ourselves, just like for all of the young people listening to this as well, if you start to silo yourselves from others, you really can't progress. Like nothing really great in life is accomplished alone. It's accomplished with people around you, and you create a unique circle, just like we talk about, like the team mentality of sports. You need that around you to be successful. So if we try to go about this alone without the combination of the efforts of those around us, we won't get to where we want to be. And that goes for everything. And that's why your friendships, your work relationships, all of that is so key to opportunity for success. So it's something I always say, it's like you have to be kind to others. You have to be inclusive, and let that be part of the process that helps drive you forward as an individual and from a workplace and an everyday life standpoint.
Have you found, this had me thinking about team building. Have you found the importance of having a diverse team, and whether it's gender, whether it's race, or just diversity of opinion around you, how meaningful that has been for all business women?
Yes, it's huge. You know, we all come from different places. Our life experiences every day make us who we are. And when we try to make decisions, and if I try to make a decision within a silo that is just myself, it's only coming from my perspective. Most of the time at this point, it's not, because it comes from the thoughts of all the other people that I've met along the way that have implemented things in my mind that have helped me. But even then, when it comes to sit at the table, it's important to have that diversity of thought, the diversity of people and background, because everybody's purview is going to be a little bit different. Just as in our business, right? We think about people that are like our entry-level sales reps. Their interaction with the customer is very different than mine, right? That's going to play into how things actually happen in like those moments. They're going to know something that I'm not necessarily witness to every single day. I go off my experiences from past, but things evolve and change. So every person within an organization plays a key part, because their voice matters into the overall of the development of the group, because they're experiencing things from different lights and different experience and different avenues.
Gillian, you kind of hit on that earlier, but you mentioned when you took over, you went into hiring people who were young, energetic. Like, just what was your approach in taking over your job as president of business operations, also with the backdrop of having male allies and making sure that we all can't do this alone?
And we're in Los Angeles, and it's one of the most diverse cities in the entire world. And I think that gives us an opportunity that a lot of other teams don't have, who are located other places. And to not take advantage of it, I mean, it would be silly. So, I mean, I think that was something that was exciting to me, that we would be able to recruit the most diverse workforce possible. But, in addition to that, and I love that the YMCA is doing this, is, that when I was 10 years old, Pepper, I'm so blown away by you, but I had no idea that there were opportunities like this. I didn't know that you could make a living working in sports if you weren't a great athlete. And I wasn't a great athlete. I loved sports. I especially loved being a spectator, and I loved playing sports for recreation, but I was never going to be a professional athlete. And I knew that from a very young age. And had I known then that you could make a career working in business, I think that, I maybe would have made a few different choices than I made. Now, fortunately, it worked out for me. But I think for young people to have exposure to this now is great. And, when I look around the room, when I first started working in sports, and I've been doing this far longer than I like to admit, I was the only woman around, and now that's just not the case. Danita was speaking about the inside sales track, the entry-level sales positions for ticket sales. And, our last two classes have been more than 50% women. And that's exciting. These are women who are entering into roles that are driving revenue. And those are roles where people can make good livings if they're good at this. And it does take a lot of hard work, but it's also very exciting. And basically the job consists of having a passion for the game. That's what you get to do all day, is talk to people about why you love the sport and the team. So, knowing that those types of things are out there, I hope, and having events like this will drive more diversity in being attracted to working in sports.
Julie, have you had similar experiences as you're going through your journey in terms of walking into offices, boardrooms, and seeing the makeup, I guess, the demographics, the makeups in the room, and how did that kind of shape who you are now?
It's funny. I said earlier how, I grew up playing basketball and was one of two women on a court with 60 men. Like, I was an investment banker when I graduated college. That's what I wanted to do. And my first job was on a trading floor, and there were 3 women and 80 men. So I've always sort of positioned myself in a world where it's predominantly dominated by men, and obviously had to, succeed and grow and be heard in that environment. But if Angel City is any example, I mean, we're 85% women. We have to work on our diversity. We need to get some more men in the door. But it's interesting. Sort of what Gillian was saying, I thought there were 2 roles in sports when I was growing up. You were either an athlete or you were Jerry Maguire. Right. You were an agent or you're an athlete. Like, I didn't even know that there were these roles that existed. And so we have a pretty robust internship program that we're working on right now, paid internship program that's going to be quarterly, so that we can bring individuals from high school and college into Angel City so they can see, both on the soccer operations side of the house, but also the front office side of the house, what are all the different types of roles and what it takes to run this team, because it's a business, but there's a community element, there's a soccer element, there's marketing and PR and tech and data. There's a lot going on. And we want to make sure that young women and young men have the opportunity to see it.
Yeah, it opens up an internship. And I lived it. An internship can completely open up new doors to young women that don't even know it exists for them. So Pepper, I'll let you ask the next one.
All right, this is for Kim. So I was, doing my research on you, and I found out that you said sports can and does make a profound and positive impact on individuals, communities, and has the opportunity to drive positive social change. What does that mean to you?
Ooh, I said a lot there, Pepper, didn't I? Well, I'm so inspired by the words of Nelson Mandela, and he talked all the time about sport having the power to change the world, and that it had the power to unite and to inspire. And I think, and we've talked about this throughout this conversation, those of us who lead and influence sport organizations, I think we have a responsibility to use these platforms both honorably and responsibly. And I think what I mean by that is that we have to make sure that we are leading in a way that's consistent with the values that our sports promote. So, for example, within hockey, we talk about this declaration of principles where we say sports should provide a safe and positive experience for kids and families, regardless of socioeconomics or gender, race, ethnicity. We need to stand that up every day. And when we don't, we need to be honest and thoughtful about ways in which we can be transparent about the ways that we need to do that differently. And that's something that, in the 3.5 years I've been with the NHL, I've been promoting, and I think we've seen a lot of positive change around that. So sports are a part of building strong and vibrant communities. We have a responsibility to those communities, and that responsibility yields revenue for our sports. So there's a relationship there that can't be denied.
Thank you.
Kim, it's funny, you quoted Nelson Mandela. We had a big presentation the other day, and the quote that I use to inspire the team is, "There's no passion to be found in playing small."
Yeah.
And that's how, we think about and lead within Angel City Football Club. Like, if it's small, it's not on the agenda for us. Anyway, just made me think about that.
Powerful.
Thank you.
This has been a pretty challenging year, 14 months for most people, and affecting businesses, teams. How have you guys kind of navigated the pandemic? And of course there are negatives, but what are some positives that you might have had over the last 1.5 years? Gillian, I'll go to you first.
I think it's showed us how much we're capable of doing through technology. And that's been pretty amazing. And it's really pushed us to figure out, okay, we miss our communities and can't wait to get back to people shoulder to shoulder, cheering and hugging each other. But I hope that we bring with us all of the learnings that we've had about how technology can actually make our experiences better. And some of those things are about bringing people who are farther away back into fan bases. If you have been a lifelong fan of a team because that's where you grew up and you've moved someplace else, how can you still stay connected? And I think that there are ways that we can use the things that we have learned over this past year or so to help us bridge that gap. And then I think some of the things that just make it easier to be a fan. A lot of the technology pieces that are in place in restaurants and retail and elsewhere, I think are things that can be brought into these facilities so that going to live events can be something that, you experience less friction. So I think there's some great things that are going to come out of this, although gosh, I can't wait to get back to full arenas.
I know. By the way, I used to see Gillian all the time. This is the first time I'm seeing her and it's virtual. Oh man, but had we all heard of Zoom before, February of 2020? Kim, what has the effect had on you and the NHL?
Yeah, well, we heard Zoom, we just didn't use it as much as we use it now. Now we're all PhDs in Zoom, right? For sure, the past 14 months, the health pandemic has been one aspect, but the racial pandemic and all eyes being on the important role that sport has and should play in social justice, I think has been an accelerant to all of our efforts to make sure that all of our sports are more welcoming and creating a sense of belonging for everyone. And for sure, that's been a major focus within the NHL. But I think athletes have seen an increased responsibility, and I hope we don't go back. I hope we continue to accelerate that. In sports like hockey, where we've never seen social activism from players, particularly since 97% of our players are white, to see the number of players that stepped up and used their social platforms to say that the murder of George Floyd was absolutely wrong, I think is putting us in a place that there's no going back. So as painful as it's been, I think it's going to forever change sport broadly and hockey specifically.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, because now there is a much stronger comfort level in being able to make those statements. Danita, what have you learned over the last year plus?
Yeah, I think both of those things really, of what Gillian said and Kim said, play huge into what we're probably doing. I think the other is for us to just our staffing and our people, and how to create opportunities for them to actually thrive in unforeseen moments. And for us as leadership, having the way to show them through guidance ways that we can adjust our business to move it forward. So I think, and even too, from an outward standpoint, from our partnerships, being able to adjust how our partnerships run, finding new ways to engage in new capacity. I really think it's pushed us to think differently in a very good way. And I think it's going to be a lot of business practices that have now adjusted that will continue over time to be long-term adjustments to actually how we run our business as a whole, in conjunction with the other two areas when it comes to technology, when it comes to social justice. I think from an internal standpoint, from our efficiencies in companies, roles, responsibilities, how we look at things will all be a little bit different as we move back in, and really seeing how our business can thrive in this next phase.
Yeah, this year has changed all of us. Julie, what have you learned?
Well, we built Angel City in the pandemic. So, for us, it's a little bit different. We didn't have the opportunity to start building our community in real life with fans. We didn't have the opportunity to meet each other in person, even during the hiring process, right? To really get to know someone to see if they're a cultural fit. It was all done over Zoom. So, we were built using technology and every tool known to man. And I think one of the things that I hope are good at is communication, right? Because when you don't have that ability to have that one-on-one, when you don't have that ability to have that personal touch, and it's all through social or through Zoom or through technology, how do you communicate in a way where you're really getting across your feelings, where there's no room for interpretation? That is always really hard. But for us, I think it's unique because that's how we came to life. And I think we can build upon that now as the world's starting to open up. We're starting to hold events, but it's really the flip of what these other teams have had to experience.
Yeah, it's remarkable. It's been such a crazy year. And I know that everyone watching is probably in awe of just seeing so many powerful, women in positions of power, because sometimes it can seem unattainable. So thank you so much, everybody, for giving us all your thoughts today and your perspective. But I'm going to give the last question to one Pepper Persley, because at 10 years old, you've got your own brand, your own show, and I want you to give some tips to all the young girls watching right now who say, I want to do what you do.
it's funny because I get asked this a lot. There's so many different things I say because I feel like there's a lot of messages that young girls should hear. But I'll just start with this one that has really applied to my life. Just be yourself because there's no one else who is you. And no matter what you're doing, if you're passionate about it and you love it and it's fun for you, then you're doing it for a reason. And if you continue to love it and do it, then it will most likely bring you joy in the rest of your life. And just as girls, a lot of the times, specifically if you're playing sports, boys and men, or even women and other girls will try to say, oh, that's not for you, when sports is completely for you. And you'll watch women's sports and you'll see that there are so many other women and girls who are doing what you love. And so just remember that there are people out there who support you. You have to find those people and just continue doing what you love and be yourself.
Well, thank you for that. Words to live by. And thank you, all of you, for being here, for sharing your insights. And I think everyone who's dreaming of having a position that you guys have in the world of sports learned a lot today. So thank you so much. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Bonnie.
Thanks so much. I don't know about the rest of the audience, but I am completely blown away. All of you are just amazing. I mean, our panelists, you, Christina, and Pepper, as others have said, if I could have just been you. I will say, though, that this experience with the Y, with finding out that we can actually reach out to women, that women are an important part of our sports community in every possible way, is pretty exciting. And I want to remind everyone listening that the Y is there for you now. Pools are opening. There are swimming lessons. Clubs are forming. Clinics are happening. There's all sorts of things going on to really take this experience and take it forward. So please reach out to your local Y, go to ymca.org. And again, I just want to say thank you to everybody participating and everybody listening. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
You're amazing.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for your thoughtful responses today. It was really great to learn from you all.
Thank you, Pepper.
Thank you. Oh, this was so awesome.
Thank you so much for all of you taking the time to do this today, because it really truly resonates to see powerful women, smart, intelligent, that can, shed some light on how to get into the roles that you're in. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes.